Well, great. Well, today we're joined by Charles Kovacs, and he's the director of the Center for Career Services at Ringling College of Art and Design. And we're going to talk about this very important function, department, service that's on every college campus, and that often gets overlooked, career services. Mr. Kovacs, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So if you could just tell me a little bit about career services in general, what the office is, why it's important on a college campus.
Career Services is, I think, the most important office, I'm sorry, a little prejudice here, on campus for many reasons. People come to a college or university and they leave. Where they want to go is more important than how they get there, if you think about it. And we deal with that. How do you get where you want to go? There's so much in the current press now about study this major at this school and you'll earn that.
Right.
And that's false. And I mean false in terms of they cut out the most important point. The student, the individual. The individual earns it, not the degree, not the college. That's a point of what we call transition.
Okay.
This is a transitive verb. The entire college is. You start, 120 weeks later, you leave. Using that period of time, 1,378 plus or minus days, is significant. And part of that process is learning how to engage the world as a potential intern or intentional employee. But you got to know where you want to go.
Right.
That's why what we have, and by the way, what I'm reflecting is you'll find in all career services office, 3 parts. Self-assessment. What does that mean? You have to understand what you are all about in your mind, your heart, your soul. Excuse me. We are not psychotherapists here. We're only trained to go this deep into the me side of the equation. That deep, that's not us. What we do here is help the student understand what, if they wish, remember I can't force them, what they understand about themselves relative to the world of work or internships. It could be related to your major or not. I have to say that again. What you do can be, if you want, determined by or related to your major or related to something else. For example, I'll use myself. What do you think my undergraduate major was?
Probably counseling, I'm guessing?
Nope.
No.
Try again.
Okay. It's something in education.
Nope.
No.
Try again.
Okay. Business.
Oh no, but I did
No.
work at Harvard Business School.
Okay. I have no idea.
Art history with a minor in fine arts.
I would not have imagined
What did I do my doctoral coursework at Harvard in?
Art history?
Yes.
Oh, really?
You get an A. Well, what am I doing in career services?
Right.
Your skill sets are you're born with it. You develop it or you choose not to. I like art history. I've taught it. I've written on it. I still do art-related stuff. I have a private practice on the side. But I have, I think, an interpersonal dynamic that I was always aware of that I am now using to help individuals develop their own aesthetic, however they want to define it. We don't tell them what to do. We ask them what to do. If they need information about self, that's the self-assessment piece. People take career instruments or tests for one of several reasons. To confirm the direction they're going in. To maybe coordinate lots of things they're thinking of, which is numerically higher or lower, or maybe to suggest something they haven't thought of before. The fourth one is to shut the parents up. Oh, leave me alone, Mom. I'm dealing with the career folks over there.
Right.
The point is these, if you will, assessment tools, I don't like to use the word test because it's not a pass-fail, it's just giving you data sets. What you do with it is up to you.
Right.
For example, if it says, and I've developed the 7-step program, if it says that, oh gee, you and people in advertising have a lot in common, what does that mean? What are you going to do with that data? So, it's 7-step. Think about it in a structured way. Well, gee, blue sky, if I was in advertising, what would that be like? Now read about it. Wow, now biographies, autobiographies, trade journals, articles. Wow, that's interesting. Gee, I could do that. There's one book, for example, I'm just using advertisers, called Blood, Brains, and Barons by David Ogilvy, the founder of Ogilvy and Mather. He had a PhD in psychology, I believe. The point is, when you read a biography, what people do or have done, are you attracted or repulsed? You see, you're having a sense of vicarious experience.
Mm-hmm.
The third phase is now speak to people who are doing it. Now notice how so far that's mimicking, if you will, in a very substantial way, the academic process of thinking, reading, speaking. Wow. Now you can actually speak to young men and women or more mature people in advertising, just using that as an example. Now you'll have a sense of vibrancy. You're not asking what's a typical day like. You've already read it. You're asking them deeper questions like, well, what courses did you find the most useful? If you had to do it over again, would you still go into advertising? This is simply information interviewing. And here at Ringling, and other schools I know have it too, they have like alumni career advisors for information exchange. You can do a lot of that through LinkedIn, but again, you got to know where you want to go and verify that that's a direction.
Right.
And it may be or it may not be related to your major. And when I say maybe, if you think, for example, of illustration, which is a very enriched major, there are several subsets and subsets of those subsets. Do you want to do character design? Do you want to do editorial? Do you want to do children's book? Do you want to do traditional media? I could go on and on and on. The point is the understanding of yourself relative to the world around you and your major is a critical component. And I think all of my colleagues in any school would agree. Now the next phase is, now that you have a sense of self, now you want to try the shoes on, take a course in it. Do you like what's being reviewed? Is it something that you'd want to study more? Do you like the content of the course? Is it wow, or is it oh my gosh, get me out of here? So now you're not, it's like test driving a car before you buy it.
Right.
All right. So if you like it, maybe you want to then, oh, can I do an internship in it? And that could be in the community, it could be in the summer, it could be just, go in and spend the day with someone. Now the next phase is major in it. Now notice how all that exploratory can occur in a high school environment.
Right.
You can choose a major because you think it's great, but in fact, maybe you don't have a good sense of it. And the last phase is to go to grad school or get a job in it. But notice these are all experimental phases.
Yeah.
And it mirrors a lot of the educational psychology on how people learn. How do people learn? Not only in a classroom, but outside a classroom. For example, how did you know you wanted to do what you're doing now? Did you wake up one morning and say, oh, this is it?
No. No, I mean, it was a very eclectic process. I mean, I have a degree in my undergrad was in electrical engineering. And I did that for a bit and then went into management, quality management. So there were bits and pieces I love. And I find that, I just shared this last night, that I take that skill set with me. I love problem solving.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where those instruments will at least verify the internal predisposition towards things.
Yeah.
For example, we have one of our majors in illustration. I think your son's majoring in that. After he graduated, he joined the military. He's now a thoracic surgeon.
Interesting.
But you see, the strength of a program can give you the flexibility to respond in different ways. That's, I think, the strength of any program. I really do. But you bring the strength to it. If you know you want to do a certain type of thing, test it out before you commit to it.
Right. Now, you mentioned the assessments first. For for college freshmen, what's a good point if they're watching this, or listening to this podcast episode? When should they have the assessment? Is it done every year? Is it done once because you don't change? Like, when's a good time to
Good
have
question.
the assessment?
Excuse me. At Ringling, we offer the assessments free to all our incoming students, and many of them take advantage of it.
Okay.
It's a free service. Why? It's an intense program. If you don't know where you're going to go, you're never going to get there.
Right.
So I recommend early. You
Okay.
don't have to take it thousands of times.
Okay.
Once is quite enough.
Okay.
Will there be slight variations? Yes, but studies have shown for both these instruments that I mentioned, and there are many others, we just use these two
Right.
because there's great research and we're trained in it. There's not going to be that much of a change. I mean, if you're a feeler, you're a feeler. If you're right-handed, you're right-handed.
Right.
If you're a thinker, you're a thinker. You can develop sensitivity on the other side of the spectrum, but you're primarily a feeler or a thinker. I'm just using one of the dimensions. Interests change, but usually the results for the strong interest inventory don't vary that much.
Okay.
So again, I don't think you have to do it every year. It's,
Okay.
I mean, it's not like a blood test.
Right.
Let me see if I caught a virus here, you know.
Right. So, what in your experience, when do students typically come to see you? What has been your experience like?
First year.
Okay.
The reason, again, we recommend first year,
Uh-huh.
and again, it's not just me. I think my colleagues in other schools will do this because the world of work is changing enormously.
Right.
And what you choose to major in today might change tomorrow. And you have to be flexible enough to understand you not only yourself, but also how to engage the world around you. And it's not just cover letters and resumes. That's mechanical.
Right.
But even that's changing. It's also understanding how you can approach and then master the techniques of approach and evaluation. It's like having a fine meal.
Mm-hmm.
If you like it, you might order it again. That's why we start early.
Right.
That's why we take a student-centered approach. And again, I speak, I think, broadly for my industry. I think there isn't a career counselor or live that doesn't take a client-centered or student-centered approach.
Right.
That's why when students come to see us, we have them electronically fill out a form, and I get a copy on my computer. This is what I'm here to talk about. You, student, have the agenda. I'm not going to tell you what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
We recommend you do certain things, but if you don't want to do it, I can't force you.
Right. Right.
So it's totally voluntary.
Right.
It really is.
Right. So most students coming in, they've had a lot of parental involvement.
Oh, yeah, sometimes too much.
Too much. And at what point, I mean, this is really a student-led initiative. I mean, they're coming on campus.
Yep.
What recommendations would you have for students to kind of get started with the process in terms of career services?
That's a multi-leveled
Okay.
question. The first message is to the parent.
Mm-hmm.
You have very graciously entrusted a young adult to us. We care about them. I use the word adult.
Uh-huh.
Even though the parents might have information to disprove the adultness, we're making that assumption.
Right.
College is a place, and I want to talk about broadly now, where a student can make a mistake and be supported in rectifying it. That could be an academic, a personal, and emotional, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
In career services, we take, Dr. Tammy Walsh gives us the charge, which we're all committed to, that we educate the whole student. It's not just academics.
Right.
It's leadership, it's communication, it's service learning, it's experiential learning, it's the German word is Gestalt, or totality of the individual. We even have spirituality as part of it for those that want that or need that. So it's not just you majored in X, you must do X, and then you earn this and you die.
Right.
It's not a linear thing necessarily. So we start messaging the parents.
Mm-hmm.
We have some helicopter parents, we have some stealth parents, and I love parents having father of three. I know what you're going through. It's hard to let go.
Yeah, it is.
As one parent said, well, you don't understand, I'm very involved in my students' life. I said, I'm glad you are. I said, but one thing I've learned is that, I don't know about you, I'm not going to be here forever.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to do is help my kids and your young son and daughter to be responsible for their own actions, so that they will say, if I do a good job as both a parent for my kids and as a counselor for your kids, that they don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
They know how to understand the self. They know the questions they have to ask. They understand how to engage the world. They understand what they want and where they want to go. And it's not just, I want to do this because I majored in that. That's a fine sort of relationship,
Right.
but it needn't be the only relationship.
Right.
So again, self-assessment is key.
Mm-hmm.
The key message is what you choose to do is up to you, not your major, not your mom and dad. It's important that you get opinions. I wrote an article several years ago. In a counseling session, the student that's sitting in front of me has on his or her shoulder, or in the room vicariously, lots of people: mom, dad, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, roommates, media, faculty, self-expectations, and you can go on from there. In career services, one of my colleagues at another school said, it's the only office where everything counts. Everything. And that's why I think I have the best job in the place. We're not telling anyone what to do. We're helping them realize what they declare they'd like to do. So again, we have self-assessment, then information, as I referred to, and that information can be books, websites, and we have a very enriched website. We have 2 of them, as a matter of fact. Woo! All right, and then, so again, self-assessment, information, and then engaging. That is to say, working with employers and internship sponsors, and there we also have a very enriched, if you will, spectrum. Last year we had about 100 companies recruiting. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Is that everything in the world? No. Does every company come here? No. It's not all about recruiting.
Right.
And all of these companies do an educational gift to us. They have a public performance, if you will, or a public presentation where they talk about their company, where it's going, why it's going, what their philosophy is about, what they're looking for in candidates. They're going to show videos. Maybe there's even one of our alums coming back and doing that presentation. So there's a sense of identification. That's a goal. Oh, that company sounds great. What they're looking for, I have. And this is interesting. I'm hearing from all the companies, we don't hire majors, we hire skill sets.
Interesting.
Now, there are companies that do look for specific majors, and that's fine. But we're hearing more and more, we hire skills, not majors.
So let me ask you this then. How are the skills communicated? Is it via the resume or the body
Oh,
of
yeah,
work? And that
absolutely.
Okay.
All right, you have to think of it, and I can even give you a handout on this. There are 3 ways to get a job. You can look for a listing or recruit. You can directly apply to a company without a listing. Or you can network. That's it. You can work with an employment agency. I don't recommend it.
Right.
You're in control of this process. Employment agencies in control. I like employment agencies, but all of them require a document known as a resume. Why do you think people need a resume? What's the purpose of a resume?
To show what you've done.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no. Okay.
What's its primary function?
Well, has your contact, you could give a business card for that. Maybe to show what you, I don't know.
It's to get an interview.
Oh, okay.
No one's going to hire you necessarily because you have a pretty resume.
Right.
And this is something new. You need basic, especially in art and design, 2 types of resumes. A very beautiful one with, fancy fonts and colors. That's called a presentation resume.
Okay.
You can put that in your portfolio, which I'll talk about in a moment. But the other one's going to be the text-rich resume. What does that mean? It means no pretty pictures, no colored fonts. It means a lot of information, because a lot of companies, since the technology is becoming less expensive, scan the document and throw it out.
Interesting. Okay.
And then they look for embedded words.
Okay.
So again, you need at least those 2, and we can help you with both of them. We have self-paced tutorials and examples on our website.
Okay. It's interesting. So.
But that,
right.
so you need a cover letter that introduces your resume and your portfolio. 4 brief paragraphs. I mean, this is mechanics.
Right.
But you also then have to send it, and then critically you have to follow up. You just can't say, I hope to hear from you.
Right.
You have to say, I will contact you in another few weeks. It's being proactive, and some students are a little shy. Oh, what am I going to say? Hey, I applied. I was just wondering on the status of my candidacy. We also have a self-paced interview tutorial, and we offer that in our office too. The point is, these are basic skill sets that all students and alumni have to master. And so we help them with it if they want.
Right. So it's a skill that can be acquired.
Absolutely.
Which is encouraging.
But the most critical part is the interview.
Right.
Sure, you got an interview, and there are 7 types of portfolios, or at least housings of them. They have to have at least a print and a website. I'm hearing from a lot of employers, I'll spend 5 seconds on the resume, I'm going to do a quick scan, or I'll just go to the portfolio and stay a website and go click, 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 done. Best work first, always. They don't have time. They're not going to sit down with a glass of wine and say, let me see if I can figure out this candidate.
Right.
You have to be self-determined. Oh, we're back to the first one. You cannot have a generic resume. You cannot have a generic portfolio. You can, but people who have a focused portfolio, and you can have more than one, they're going to be a little bit more successful in this process. I'd say a lot more successful, because they know what they want. I mentioned that to students. Well, I'm not sure. I said, well, I can help you be sure. And let's back up into the self-assessment piece. Now, you can have a job or a career by choice or by chance. We take it by choice rather than chance.
Interesting. So with so much involved, so many pieces.
Yeah.
It's the freshman year. I mean, freshman year is kind of it's the transition, and it's very new and different from high school. Is that a good time to at least get started with something, and then continue on? Like, what do you recommend?
Just what you said.
Oh, okay.
Getting to know us, getting to know what we can and can't do. We don't do placement. We don't do placement. Placement is a word that came into the American lexicon in the 1940s.
Okay.
When you could study engineering and you will do engineering.
Right.
So the offices, predecessors of what we do now, would do that. We will actually say to the company, here's a candidate for you. Can't do that. That's illegal.
Okay.
EEOC Affirmative Action Guidelines. Whoa. See, what we do is we make sure that everyone has access to employers, to jobs and internships.
Okay.
It's a federal requirement and it's only humane.
Right.
We're not going to say, well, that's for you, but I'm not going to share for you.
Right.
That's not good.
Right.
So they have to understand some of these basic concepts, and it's as though you asked me, well, since people have to do a thesis, they don't have to know how to write until the senior year. No!
Good point.
It's just like learning a technique.
Right.
And this is a technique no different from any other.
technique.
Exactly. And it's going to last you longer than the course you took in first year.
Yeah, and I'm hoping those who are listening hear you say, like, get that, because that's so critical. I never really thought about it being like a skill or like a muscle.
It
that you can
is. It
develop
is.
over time.
Yeah. And again, we're not the only purveyor of information.
Right.
Faculty, alumni, student to student, that's all good.
Right.
The issue is we spend a lot of focused time and attention and prior experience in this stuff.
Right.
We try to keep up on the legalities going on and the changes. It's no longer just a regional or national market. It's international. What does that mean? We explain that to students in various ways, as I'm sure faculty do. But when it comes to actually applying for things, you're competing against people in Mumbai, India, potentially. So how you put things together and how you relate that to your skills and work habits is critical.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Oh, it does. It makes a lot of sense. It makes perfectly good sense. It's like this one book I read a while back. Oh gosh, I can't think of the author, but The World is Flat.
Yeah.
The whole concept that you're not just competing with your community, your high school, your campus, or what. You're competing globally, and it's important to understand that.
But aside from that, your sensitivity within the workplace. For example, there's an old saying that the families are the cradles of our careers. In other words, you as a mother and your husband have been giving your children information about the world of work. Though you might not be doing it intentionally, they're learning. Oh, dad came home tired, mom came home tired. Gee, they're complaining about this boss or that coworker. Wow, I have to know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
See, so we're training vicariously.
Right.
They're friends, their parents' friends. They're all learning about this thing. And when it comes to themselves, now that's what all the people in the room with us, well, my dad said this, my friend, well, this is you.
Right.
You know?
Right. Right.
Well, they said this. Well, what do you feel? What do you think about this?
Right. Absolutely.
Now, look, I know college is expensive. I know that. Been there, done that. Okay? 3 times, 3 kids. The point is the following. You're investing in something. You have to manage your own portfolio. I had a parent came to me and we were stopped on the tours, and he said, well, I said, career service. He said, can you guarantee my kid's going to have a job when he graduates? I said, sir, that is a great question. I will answer it. I said, but I need to ask you a preliminary question. I also teach here. I teach the credited internship course. People take internship in the summer. They work with me over the summer, and then they take my 15-week course. If they pass it, they get 3 credits. They can do it twice. I said, your son might be in my course. I, as his instructor, would you ask me if I'm going to guarantee he's going to have an A? He said, well, no. I said, why not, sir? He said, well, it depends on how hard he works. There's your answer.
Right. Exactly.
The operativeness of the student, it is not an automatic that if you study X at school Y, you'll earn salary Z and work for this company.
Right.
The media would have you think so. In fact, it is not so.
Right. Right.
The student is the operative candidate in this.
Right.
We are a conduit, but we are not a determinant. Oh, did you hear what I said? We help the student go from point A to B, but they choose what point A and B is. We'll train them, but we can't force them.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see that students make in terms of career service?
Late starts.
Late start, okay.
One student said, well, I don't think you can help me. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I have lots of loans. I have to earn a minimum $80,000 a year right out. Yeah, right, I can't. I said, the point is that a realistic? Well, that's what I need.
Right.
I said, and you want to do, and he told me what he wanted to do. I said, well, let's take a look at some of the facts, some of the statistics, some of the hard data and facts on this. And I said, notice the range of the entry-level salary for these sorts of positions,
Right.
and it's going to vary by geography,
Right.
cost of living and all that. I said, is this. You want this.
Right.
Well, it's non-negotiable. I said, well, I'm not saying I'm negotiating with you.
Right.
I'm just saying
This is what it is.
This is what it is. He said, well, it's this or nothing. I said, you don't have a second, third, and fourth option? No, it's this.
Yeah.
So that's unrealistic expectations. Sometimes people do that. I'm not saying this is a blanket thing because they don't want to get involved in something that they can't feel that they can control. There's no guaranteed outcome.
Yeah.
And then when I gently say, but you've been doing it for the past 8 years in high school and college, you guaranteed your outcome by being invested in the process.
Yeah. And it doesn't change, so
No.
it's the same.
And it's a life skill.
Yeah. Great. Well, as we wrap up, do you have any final tips for parents, students?
Yeah, don't panic.
Right.
There is light at the end of the tunnel,
Right.
but the student brings the light.